Today we are talking about winter. And we are talking about the cold. And we are talking about the darkness. Literally, that the sun is not up that much right now. There are more hours of darkness than ever during the year. Today we will talk about one image or card or point, one specific point in the framework we make use of, the 21-point STAR framework of emotional skills. And we are talking about the card that says motion. Motion. I think actually that we will start out with a segment of sorts, wherein my spouse, Elsa, will read out loud this transcribed text, this text I have translated from this Swedish nature magazine. What was it called? Swedish Nature?
I think it was just called Nature.
Yeah, Swedish Nature or Nature. And there was this article about the sleeping behaviors of different animals come winter time. So Elsa will read this text, and then I will use that text as a sort of backdrop or a inspiration to speak about winter, speak about how the cold and the darkness affects our motion. Because when our motion is changed, then also our emotions are changed. So without further ado, here is Elsa reading this text.
Winter sleep. Hedgehogs, mice, and bats alike sleep a near death-like kind of sleep during the winter. Their bodies grow as cold as their surroundings. Only in cases where the animals risk complete freezing do they start producing body heat. This is called hibernation. The sleep of bears and badgers is called winter sleep. They only lower their body temperature by a couple degrees. Neither hibernation nor winter sleep go by uninterrupted for the whole winter. All winter resting mammals wake up now and again. They warm up their whole body, and they may defecate or move a little to then fall back asleep. Small critters sleep the deepest. It is no coincidence that small animals sleep deeper than big ones. Small critters have higher metabolism and would need to put on unreasonably much weight to keep up their body temperature enough to last all through the whole winter. A large animal, like the bear, also has less skin surface area in relation to their weight compared to a small critter, such as the hedgehog. Therefore, the small hedgehog loses body heat more rapidly. Really small critters, such as insects, spend their winters in a so-called diapause, which resembles hibernation. Many pupas, larvae, and adult insects can cope with negative temperatures. Alternatingly hot and cold frogs and reptiles also sink into a dormancy of sorts, but do not wake up until they risk complete freezing. They must find a spot free from frost for the winter, such as holes in the ground or hiding underneath rocks. The large bear carefully selects their hibernating dens and revisits the spot many times during summer. Oftentimes they select holes in old anthills or the space beneath a root roll. They also select spots in between large rocks. Really large male bears sometimes simply lie down under a dense spruce tree and allows for the snow to cover them up for the winter. Bears have the same body temperature as we do during summer, but lowers it to about 32 degrees Celsius for their winter sleep. When their bodies go colder than 32, they start shaking and get warm from the motion. Regularly, the bear raises its head and listens for outside noise.
Thank you, Elsa. That was a nice text. So why did we read that text right now? Well, we humans, we are an animal of sorts. We might not think that we are, but we are an animal. From our point of view, more sophisticated than most animals, of course. But, we need to eat, sleep, and reproduce, just as every other animal does. So, one of the points of reading this text about animals' sleeping patterns or hibernation patterns during winter is simply to show that there are both similarities and differences to how we react to the cold and the dark of winter time. So maybe it's quite obvious that the animal that we resemble the most out of this, from this text, is maybe the bear.
Yeah.
Maybe the bear, because we are not as extreme as the insects or the really small critters that we almost freeze up completely during the winter. But we share some similarities with the bear, that we do make preparations for winter time. The bear went looking for places to have their den, their hibernation den. We buy clothes. We change the way we heat up our homes. We buy candles, we make fires. We maybe change the way we eat. We might change the way we sleep. The way we sleep might change on its own. To name a few things that we do as well during the winter. How we changed our behaviors. And that we feel somewhat different about ourselves during the winter. I wanted to dedicate this episode mainly to talking about the cold and the lack of light. Because darkness is not just darkness, it is also the lack of light. I live in Sweden. And Sweden is a country with distinct seasons of the year. A very distinct summer, a very distinct winter, and somewhat distinct autumn and spring in between the two. So if you are a resident of Sweden, to develop techniques and coping mechanisms for almost half the year, or maybe more than half the year, being quite dark, depending on which part of the country you live in, but there's a lot of hours of darkness. Some Swedes would say that summertime is their favorite time, and other Swedes would say that winter time is their favorite time. Some Swedes thrive better in the lack of light than in the light. So this just goes to show that, as we heard when Elsa talked about the different animals and how they react to the winter differently, also we humans react to different weather and different climates differently.
And the changes.
And the changes, yes. The changes in seasons, the changes in temperature and light or darkness. The changes, yeah. So these changes in temperature or light can be viewed as changes in motion, changes in movement. If we go scientific for a bit, temperature in itself is the degree of motion, how much the molecules or atoms move or vibrate. It's sort of an expression of how much is happening during a time period. So if there is high temperature, there is a lot of activity, and if there is low temperature, there is little activity. And this affects the way we feel. This affects the way we make plans, the way we view ourselves, our lives, what kind of expectations we got, what is possible, what is impossible. This show is called Erik Wardell Pause, and pausing is the most central term that we will have, that we will use in when learning emotional skills, because every emotion becomes easier to make something constructive with, or something worthwhile with, if we develop the ability to pause. And one ability that we can develop is the ability to just observe motion in its different forms. So when it is winter time, people slow down. The motion slows down. And when motion slows down, nuances and details become more apparent to us. I know people who have moved to Sweden from warmer climate have said that they are surprised at how much their personalities change when they come here. Likewise, when us Swedes move to a warm climate, a sunny climate, our personalities change. So temperature and light and dark affects the way we feel about ourselves. If we go back a couple of generations in Sweden, in the north, maybe, let's say, 3 generations or more. 3 generations ago, there were no screens. There were no smartphones, there were no televisions, no computers. So there was the light you got during the day, and then there was electrical light and fire. That was it. If we go back for even further yet, if we go back a couple hundred years more, then the electrical light wasn't there. Then it was just the sun and fire. And if we want to go back even further to exclude the fire, then it doesn't become relevant, I think, for this show. But what is my point here? My point is that when you are in such a place, such as the north, when some days it feels like the sun is up for like 2 hours. It feels like the sun is never here, it's just constant night. then the light sources you got take on a different meaning. So I would suppose that a smartphone has a different emotional value to a northerner than to someone living near the equator. It's just my guess. My qualified guess from living in the dark. That the screens, the blue light from the smartphones take on a different meaning here. Affects us differently. And the point here is not to say that one way of living is better than another. That is very difficult to say anything about. But just as the hedgehog and the bear from Elsa's text earlier, from their different anatomy, their different life predicaments, they need to develop different strategies come winter. And to some extent, we humans are the same, I guess. That depending on our setup, depending on our constituents, the way we think, what we come from, we will relate to light and dark differently. We will relate to temperature differently. And we will relate to technology differently. We will use it somewhat differently. Also, if we talk about the temperature, the cold, outside right now it is cold. It is not as pleasant to go out. It is not as pleasant to go for a run. It is not as pleasant to wait for the bus. Or stand outside and have a conversation. It is not as relaxed. The cold makes some demands of us. Our shoulders tense up. The natural flow of fluids and emotions in our bodies somewhat stops a little when it is cold. And then when we get inside again, in the warm, then all the emotions and the fluids start moving again. So being human in wintertime has this sort of on and off kind of rhythm to it. We go outside in the cold, our bodies shut down a little, like the bear who goes into hibernation. Our bodies shut down somewhat. Our thinking is changed. And then we come back into the warm, and our emotions change again. The motion changes. from the warmth. So having a conversation outside is different between summer and winter. And having a conversation inside is also different if we compare summer to winter. I think this is something we easily neglect in these times when we have internet. For example, if we view comments online, we just read the words. We don't know anything about the body behind the words. I do not know if the person writing the words I'm reading is sitting in an igloo in the snow, freezing. I do not know if the person writing the words are sitting in an armchair on the beach with their feet in the hot sand. The weight to our words, the weight to our sentiments change depending on how our bodies feel once we utter them. So there is a lot of the physical aspects of communication that is black boxed when we just read comments online. There is a large room for error. Or maybe I said it wrong now. Maybe there is small room for error. It's easy to misunderstand each other, is what I'm saying. It's very easy to misunderstand the non-verbals of what we are saying, since we only see the words on a screen. We have no context whatsoever. So when you, the listener, are listening to my voice or Elsa's voice earlier, it is quite easy for you to get a physical sensation of what to make of what we are saying, because you can hear in my voice how my body feels. You can hear if I am relaxed, you can hear if I am nervous, you can hear what I feel confident about, or what I am, having doubts about. But you cannot see that as clearly in written text online. So there is a lot more motion. There is a lot more nuances to motion than we necessarily notice. But if we do notice, there can be new pathways we might find. I think that was basically what I wanted to speak about today. Do you have anything else you want to add or something?
No.
No? Then thank you.
Thank you.